Hello again, I'm back. Let's do more business news. Ghana and Ivory Coast, as you already know, have proposed a suspension of the sale of cocoa beans to the global market for the 2020-2021 crop season until further notice. The two nations produce over 65% of the world's cocoa beans, with Ghana earning over $2 billion in exports. So will the suspension impact the country's economy? That's a question I posed to an economist, Courage Boti of Data Bank, a short while ago.
I think the most likely impact, in my view, if this whole thing pulls off, is a positive one for government, and then for like the background I was trying to give you. If we reached a peak of around 3,400 per metric ton, and now we averaging 2,300, that is still a long way to go. Some nearly $1,000 difference per metric ton. Now, if you are able to push up prices to an acceptable level, and then you sustain your productivity, even if you are not growing it, you sustain the level it is now, the farmers are getting discouraged and then converting their farmlands into galamsey pits because they find that more viable. The people that buy those plots and then convert them into galamsey pay them more than cocoa gives them. But if cocoa prices could go up a bit, maybe through this initiative, what you give them is a better value. They are able to produce more. The problem will be that if you produce a cocoa bean and people are not buying them, what do you do with them? And that is why storage facilities, the processors, and once you convert them into the powders, the cakes, and then all those other cocoa products in the semi-processed form, they can be stored for a long time, and then when they eventually hit the market, because you have appropriate facilities, they'll be in good conditions. So the net benefit, I think, in yours to us as a country, I see more of a benefit than a loss or a damage to the economy if it is done well.
Do you think we'll be having this conversation in the first place if you had strong processing facilities in Ghana, and we are not only depending on exporting raw beans, and then we process them before exporting to the international market, but what we do is mostly to export the raw material?
There is a politics to this, not internal politics anywhere. You know, most of the processors here in Ghana, the Kagil and then those other ones, are affiliates of multinational processors who are in Ghana here. They are processing basically for their parent companies. We can't process so much. You know, it's not like we don't even have capacity. You know, CPC alone has a lot of capacity to produce, but they are not even operating. I don't think, the last time I checked, they are not even near half of their installed capacity. The problem has been that because of our trade relations with our trade partners and the kind of superiority they have over us. So then if you produce a cocoa bean, the loans they give you and all the support services they give you, it's in return for the raw materials you produce, right? So if you insist on processing them into finished goods and send to them, you may be taking a hit in a lot of other areas. I mean, someone will call this conspiracy theory, but it is a reality. So we are limited in a way as to how much we can even export of processed goods, right, of our cocoa, of our gold and all of that, because the powers that be, the trade relations we have with those other guys out there, our multilateral partners that we depend on so much for our donor supports and then all those other loan facilities that come in, they need these things in return. Most of them we pay through some of these commodities that we export. So while the will may be there, there is also some limitation, but that does not take it away. Now that we are talking about Ghana Beyond Aid, I think this is the right time to even spearhead some of these campaigns more heads-on.
The European Union ambassador to Ghana, Diana Akonsia, has described Ghana as a preferred destination for African investors from the European Union. In an interview with Joy Business ahead of the first ever Ghana EU Business Forum, Diana Akonsia hinted of the readiness of investors from the EU market to partner local businesses.
Connect with your question on the business climate. Ghana is a politically stable country and it's a democracy. This is a key advantage for an investor who wants to come to the country. Political risk is, I think, what businesses hate most, because they don't know what's going to happen in 4 or 5 years. In Ghana, there is a reasonable perspective that in 4 or 5 years' time there will still be a functioning democracy. That's very important. Another thing that you have in Ghana is the rule of law. That's also very important. The business knows that its assets, its valuables are not going to be seized from one day to the other. That's also very, very important. So Ghana has a lot going on for itself in terms of business climate. There is a lot of young population, relatively good level of education compared to other African countries. Of course, there is still a lot to do, and you know very well that in the World Bank ranking of business climate, Ghana has made some progress last year. I think they went up 6 points, 6 positions, but it was coming after a period of relatively decline of the ranking, and Ghana is at number 118 or 119, and there are other countries like Mauritius or Rwanda which are.
Crude oil traded at $62.56 an ounce. The update of the commodity news market is next. For business tonight with me, Sandra Essinama. There's more news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business.